Hello everyone and welcome to the Game Dimension, a channel dedicated to nothing but video games, good, bad, and somewhere in between. I'm your host Benson, and you may know me from such classics like New School Arcade, and now also the Game Dimension. And also Coffee House Productions, where I host Dating Simulator, and I'm also a host of the regular Coffee House Productions podcast in general. And if you also watch Shogun at a Leader, I also edit his stuff, so you may know me from there as well. It's been a really busy 2020, let's just put it that way. Hey guys, it's Benson from the Game Dimension. I know it's been a while, especially if you haven't seen the update video that I left up for about 2 weeks or so, but here we are, 2021. What a weird year that last year was, huh? We don't talk about it. We don't even say the numbers on this channel. We're gonna pretend it didn't exist, but we made it. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad you guys are staying safe, hopefully. But this video is essentially going to be a bit more laid back, a more unscripted video. This is basically going to be looking back at the Game Dimension for the 6 months that it's been up already, what we're going to do going forward, talking about the Game of the Year as well, and also, too, a fun Q&A that I have at the end of the video that's planned. So I'm just going to hop right into it. 2020 was a weird year, but I say the best thing that probably came out of it, other than graduating college, was definitely making the Game Dimension. I had plans for about a couple years now, and I was sort of busy slash lazy, if you will, in starting it. And with the quarantine happening and not having no longer college classes, I was like, hey, I should make a YouTube channel. And it helps too that I've been working with my buddy Connor on New School Arcade, so I was like, cool, I have a little bit of experience, so let's hop right into it. And I started planning things around April, I should say. And as you can tell by the upload video of Battle for Bikini Bottom, it didn't come out till June. A lot of hiccups on the way. The beginning of the Game Dimension for the 6 months, specifically like the first 3 months, is a rough saga, to say the least, on many fronts. For the Battle for Bikini Bottom video, it was just a lot of hiccups. For those of you that don't know, I film all of these on a iPhone. Originally, the first video was on my iPhone. Wasn't the best quality. My girlfriend's letting me use hers from Rehydrated up until now, so it's a lot better quality to say the least. But it was a lot of fun making Battle for Bikini Bottom. Bit on the long side. Definitely not the longest, as we'll get to soon enough. But it definitely was fun to make. For a first video, I was thinking, wow, I'm definitely doing this, but also I sort of put my expectations low. I knew that it wasn't going to get a lot of traction probably for the first month, and then all of you came through. Like, it's almost at 400 views. Holy shit, I did not expect that. Thank you guys so much for that. And to say that that first video was a big positive reaction is an understatement. I had friends texting me about what they liked about the video, a bunch of you I met through the Game Dimension, and a bunch of you that have supported me before the Game Dimension, maybe like a month or two, some of you mutuals on Twitter. Can you tell this isn't scripted? I'm starting to leave my stutters in, but a lot of you came through, and I did not expect that, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you guys a ton for putting the channel out there right from the get-go. I really appreciate it. And then sort of going on from Battle for Bikini Bottom, it conveniently came out around the time of Rehydrated, so I figured, hey, let's jump right into that. And that video I'm still proud of, but it's more of a video on a remaster of a game that I just covered too, mind you, so there wasn't enough time for people to get acquainted with the channel, especially with the original Battle for Bikini Bottom game. So if I got any new viewers from Rehydrated, they had no idea what the fuck was going on. They had to basically watch Rehydrated after Battle for Bikini Bottom, and I kind of acknowledged that was sort of a mistake on my part, but I was really excited for Rehydrated. I've been for like almost a year since it was announced, and I wanted to get it done. That one, there weren't many hiccups with that one, I should say. Rehydrated was actually very smooth. I'm just a perfectionist if there were any hiccups. Like, when it comes to setting up frames and lighting, I'm very perfectionist and very nitpicky a lot. So it kind of is tough to basically sit there and film when something is off. Like, even now, like, I'm gonna go into why I'm in my room instead of my usual setup now in a minute, but even now I'm sort of very nitpicky. The lighting is a little bit off because I'm using my room lighting and the ring light that I use for this, and it isn't exactly what I want it to be, but I have to work with it if I want to get this video out on time, which, again, we'll get there soon enough. But Rehydrated, not many hiccups. The problem with me during that time was it's summer. I was getting a bit antsy, as I'm sure all of us were with events. But the thing was, Also, too, I spent a lot more time trying to formulate words on how I felt about Rehydrated in regards to some of its changes. When you have a childhood game that gets remastered, and sometimes it isn't exactly what you expect. Oh, excuse me. It isn't exactly what you expect. It's a bit tough to put it into words without seeming nitpicky or nostalgia blind. So the final verdict took a lot of time out of me to actually find the words for. So that was probably the only hiccup, and that's why you guys got it almost a month late. And in regards to everything else on the channel, that was probably the smoothest video that I ever made. And once again, you guys came up clutch and continuing to. I literally checked my stats right before I started recording this to see how we're doing. This finally reached 200 views. It's not the second most viewed. That is the next video, which we're going to go over in a second, but you guys are continuing to come up clutch once again. I'm going to... I hope you like unscripted videos where I praise you guys a ton. Seriously, you guys make the channel. Thank you guys so much. I'm literally going to try to not praise you as much, but I'm just so proud of the work everyone's putting in, everything that you guys are enjoying. And Rehydrated definitely was another stepping stone into this is it. This is serious. I want to keep going with this. And then Mario Origami King happened, and let's just say a lot went wrong with that. So, to kind of put it lightly, because I talked about this on Twitter on a very long Happy New Year tweet that I did, a lot went wrong, not just in regards to filming, but mentally. This was not to go too into detail, you can find the tweet on my Twitter, I don't want to go too into detail, but a lot went wrong in my life that I sort of felt like anything I was doing didn't matter, and what was the point of trying? Like, I literally had a vacation from work dedicated to watching Hockey Witch came back, and to work on Paper Mario the Origami King, because at that point, I already breezed for the fucking game almost, so I just needed to do a little bit more and then start filming, and I could have easily had it out in August, but I sort of hit the fan quick, and rest assured, I'm better now, but I still feel the effects of it. That's how bad it was. Like, it was a very draining, mentally low type of time for me. Even finishing up Origami King was a bit of a drain, just because I still was in that mindset of everything didn't matter, and it kind of sucked, as it usually does. I haven't felt this low since 2016, I want to say, but it was not a fun time. I would say the most hiccups happened around Origami King, not just because of technical problems, but also because of a mental low. And to say that I'm proud of Origami King now, compared to when I first made it, is a bit of an understatement. Like, I have all my videos on a hard drive, which is somewhere behind here in the desk, but every once in a while, I'll go back to that video specifically and rewatch certain parts, especially my little monologue at the end, where I sort of talk about how good Mario the Origami King is, and like the ending where I put the games on like the shelf and what's supposed to be my new studio, mind you, that's still being worked on, don't worry about that. But I go back to those parts because, to think, I sort of came out and did all that in regards to making the video and speaking the way I did. There was a lot of emotion behind it, and Paper Mario is a series that means a lot to me, that's for sure. It's not like my top series like Kingdom Hearts and Pokemon is, but it does mean a lot to me. And considering this game came out during a mental low for me, and I got this long-ass video, seriously, like the fucking length of a feature film. I don't know how any of you sat through that entire video. Thank you a million times over for that. But to sort of look and hear, especially the ending speech, where I was at a mental low and I still came out and I spoke the way I did about a game that was really good and the themes that it had, to say that I'm kind of proud of it is an understatement. Like, I try to be proud in all my work, but especially during that time and seeing how popular it got right away and how it's popular now, like literally, like I said, that this is the second most viewed video on the channel now. It surpassed Rehydrated by like 2 views and is like 202 last I checked. But to think that there was a lot of voices in my head saying people aren't gonna like this, it's a feature film, on top of like the mental low I was at, and then all of you sort of came out and not only made it one of my more popular videos out the get-go, but also my most liked video, sitting pretty at 12 likes, and all of you have admitted to sitting through that long-ass video and loving every second of it. That was the confidence boost that I needed. And I think even though Origami King was the most frustrating to make because of problems with myself, it was also the video I'm most proud of, and probably the video that I like the most, and a lot of you sort of echo that sentiment. I know a couple people, a lot of friends of mine actually, I asked them at one point, hey, how would you rank, the videos in regards to which ones you like the most? And Origami King always sits pretty at the top. And I find that absolutely thrilling, especially because I go way too long into a bunch of stuff, and I know I do, but it's a review and I have to be as fair as I can. So again, before I get too emotional, thank you. Literally, Origami King and this channel would not happen without you, and you guys literally did more than you ever think you could, like you always do. I appreciate it a ton. And then, of course, I get emotionally scarred with Maneater, but, let's go into that really quick, because the problem with Maneater wasn't technical difficulties. Again, this was in regards to recording rather smooth. Again, perfectionist problems was the thing getting in my way the most, but the game itself was the problem. And I don't think, out of everything I could say, like every video I've made this year, I don't think I could say that about any other game. I mean, there were problems with the games at times, whether it's glitches or difficulty spikes or whatever, but literally, the game was the problem in making the review. Like, constant bugs, crashing several times to the point where it's scratching the disc, like I said in the video, forcing myself to go through the very, very terrible pup and teen stages. Seriously, fuck those stages. And just trying to get everything, even though I wasn't having fun grinding at times, that was not fun. Like, again, the game's a mixed bag for me, that's for sure. But when I was recording, that was not fun at all. Let me tell you right now, especially for like the first few hours. I almost quit. I'm not gonna lie. I said it in the video, I'll say it again. I almost quit. And I know Maneater was hyped up as like the rival of the channel, but I almost quit because those first 2 hours were completely frustrating, and those were the only hiccups. And to think, if it wasn't for the game being so fucking broken in the beginning, I probably would have had that review out sooner, instead of a month again down the line. But again, I digress. Not much to say about Maneater other than, Jesus Christ, I cannot believe I made that my rival, and I regret it, and also, good God, I'm scared to see it come back in the future because they're making DLC, they keep promising it, mind you, and also the possibility of the sequel. And I wouldn't be doing this channel justice if I didn't follow through on my word about seeing it in the future again. So, help me. Going from Maneater now and sort of going into the last video that I did, Tony Hawk, that was actually very smooth sailing. I have never played a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game before. I really wanted to, just so that way I can sort of get a first glimpse into the series. And I've been itching to go into it for a while, but it was a lot of fun, learning everything and getting used to how difficult it can be to manage gravity was a lot of fun after the first few hours. And it was exciting. And I was like, this is gonna be a quick video. And even too, like, the script is 9 pages long, which translated to a 22-minute video, and I was like, cool, this is gonna be the quickest release that I've ever done. I can get 2 videos out in a month. But then Adobe Premiere Pro decided to fucking screw me over. Yeah, I posted this on Twitter a lot because, let me tell you, it was tough, but for some reason, Adobe Premiere Pro has a tendency to crash. All editing programs do, as you can see, but Adobe has it the worst. But it crashed, and when I went to go back in, all my rendering space and rendering the videos properly wasn't working. So me and Fusefall, my brother, by the way, who is responsible for all the thumbnails and the art, give him some love, by the way, him and I sat there and downloaded several drivers in regards to like graphics and whatnot to try to update and see if it's the computer or if it's Premiere Pro itself. And, the problem was either we download all these drivers and waste space, or I have to render everything by hand in Adobe Premiere Pro, which takes up gigabyte after gigabyte for every minute. And it's a 22-minute video at this point, by the way. So that's like a lot of gigs, which I do not have because I do all of my work on my laptop, which is a terabyte Alienware laptop, and I have a bunch of games on there, so you do the math on where that leaves me in terms of specific rendering problems. But at that point, it was basically either I download these drivers and I wait, or I have to render everything by hand and keep deleting everything as I go, which some things I unfortunately cannot afford to delete, such as the footage. Like, I record all my footage through Elgato, which kind of sucks, but it's the situation that I have right now. But not fun. Not fun to say the least. And then when I go into Adobe Premiere, and I sort of go in and I'm like, okay, cool, I have enough space, or not space, it's enough power to render. Then all of a sudden, I can't watch my project, and it's saying, oh, now your visual drive is now not up to date with Adobe Premiere Pro, or compatible, or whatever. Either way, I was fucking pissed. It was almost midnight, and I wanted to get this done because Adobe Premiere was giving me complete ass for a long time, and I threw my hands up and I said, after this, I'm done with Adobe Premiere. And so I sat there for 30 minutes. No, not 30 minutes actually. That was the final render where it actually worked for once. Rendering in total for every clip took about 2 hours. Not good. So I spent 2 hours of my time rendering every single clip, because if it didn't render properly, when I export the video, it wouldn't come out good. And again, I need overall quality to be good or it's not going out. That is a philosophy with me and this channel in general. I don't care what sort of hiccups there are, I don't care how long it takes, I'd rather give quality content than rush it and not be good. Whether it's the scripting, the recording, the editing, whatever, it needs to be good for you guys, because if I'm not proud of it, there's no way in hell you guys are possibly going to be proud of it. So I needed it to be good. So I wasted 2 hours of my time rendering every single clip, and then when it gave me the notification going, beep, oh, look at that, dumbass, you ran out of storage, delete a game or two, I sat there and uninstalled so much shit, including my Neverwinter game. You made me lose my Dark Elf, you son of a bitch, Adobe. And to say I'm not going back for any reason, unless it's a total emergency, is an understatement. I'm done with Adobe, because that put me over the edge. And right now, my laptop, my girlfriend's using my laptop. I almost pulled up my laptop, I'm stupid. But either way, my new editing software, DaVinci, essentially works like Adobe Premiere Pro, and I actually like this a whole lot better. In between the interface, the editing software as a whole, the fact that when you put in a video from an outside source to edit, it doesn't take up gigabytes to render right out the gate is a godsend. So this is a lesson in Adobe Premiere Pro may be the industry standard, but it's not a good standard. Seriously, if you can, find other editing software if you want. And if you use Adobe Premiere Pro and it's smooth, good for you. It works for you. But it certainly wasn't working for me. It was a complete asshole and was probably the biggest enemy in this anime arc, and I'm glad it's over. But back to Tony Hawk though. That video performed moderately well. I'm not gonna lie. Even now, it's like the least viewed video on the channel. The channel has sort of slowed down a bit, I've noticed, but also too, that's the holiday season talking. But every video is over triple digits, which is more than I could have ever asked for. And I'm extremely happy with how that came out. The biggest takeaway from this video is that people really like Radical Benson for some reason. What's that about? Like, seriously, my friends and I have this joke where they deadass want me to bring back Radical Benson in the future, and also, too, they bring it up whenever they can. I'm not even kidding. If you ask my friends on like the Discord server that I'm a part of, they will tell you that Radical Benson is great, and they want him back. I did not expect that to happen. It was literally just an opening skit that I thought of before I even played Tony Hawk, and I'm like, oh, they would love that. I did not expect that in regards to Radical Benson. If anything, I expected Sharkhead Benson. I expected the Bensons playing Guess Who. There are 5 million other Bensons on the channel that I expected, including Rant Benson, which a lot of you really love. Like, literally, apparently me ranting is the funniest shit in the world. I don't know why, but I expected those Bensons to be more popular. But no, let's have Radical Benson with the Radical Manifesto pop up 5 more times. Now, I'm not saying I won't put him down, but if he returns, you caused this. You people. And I may not apologize for what I'll do. Also, too, as you know, Crash Bandicoot 4 was going to be the next video. Still, it remains to be the next video, because, boy, when I was hitting my stride, and even though there were complications with Crash, which you'll find out in the review, when I went to record, guess who got COVID? And that's why I'm also in this room and not my usual setup. Literally, the plan was to have Crash Bandicoot 4 out a week or two before Christmas, because the Christmas special that I had was going to be a small game that was easy to beat in 7 hours, but I wanted to make it a big, grandiose Christmas special. And with the progress I made with Crash, regardless of how big it was or how frustrating it was, which again, you'll see in the review, but I was about to record, and all of a sudden, I felt like complete horseshit. Like, I had chills, I had fever, I had coughs, I could not move out of my bed for the first few days, and all I did was sleep. It was not good. And of course, I tested positive for COVID, which set me back. And of course, the quarantine period for COVID, conveniently enough, of course, another hiccup, probably the worst hiccup that I've ever felt, was to finish after Christmas. So not only were you guys not getting a Crash special before or the end of the year, but you weren't getting a Christmas special. And I felt horrible. Forget COVID aside, I felt like shit because I was hitting a stride once again, and there was a big roadblock that I could do nothing about. Unfortunately, health comes first. And that is why I'm currently in the room, which we'll get to soon enough when we go into the plans for the future. But rest assured, Crash is on the way. I gotta start recording for it and fixing up that stuff, because it'd be weird to have like half of it be downstairs or half of the voice recordings be done prior to Christmas and the rest be in the room after Christmas. So rest assured, it's on the way. We'll get into that in a second, but to say that the channel ended with a whimper rather than a bang is a bit of an understatement, but I'm very glad with the progress the channel has made for the 6 months that we've been up. Like, literally, 42 subscribers, last I checked. Over 1,000 views in general. So many retweets and shares whenever I posted something stupid about the video. You guys not only doubled my expectations, but fucking tripled it. And this is only for 5 videos, I think. Thank you. 1,000,000 times over, thank you. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Like, I am a perfectionist. Again, I feel like I should cut this out, but every time a car passes, I do this thing where I stop and wait, so that way I get good audio, but I'm gonna keep going at this point. Old habits die hard. But, seriously, especially when it comes to Paper Mario the Origami King and just sort of putting myself out in the open, thank you. I mean it. Like, half a year and 42 of you have showed up. Even more of you that possibly aren't subscribed, whether you're waiting for more content to determine if this is the channel to stay with or not, or just don't have an account in general. Thank you. Every single one of you. I appreciate you guys, and if anyone new shows up during this update video, I appreciate you as well. Just even watching this update video is a complete honor. Like, it's so much fun. I got into film for a reason, and if this YouTube thing ends up sticking down the line, whether I have a studio job or not, you better believe I'm gonna make sure you guys know it. Like, I appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you 1,000,000 times over. All right, now that we got that out of the way with the present, let's talk about the future of the Game Dimension. So, what you're looking at right now, this is probably the reality for the Crash Bandicoot 4 review. I recovered from COVID. My girlfriend did, my sister did, the ones that first had it, but now my mom has it. So the hotline told us that, you know, we can go out and do our jobs and stuff, because apparently once you get it, you have a 90-day immunity to it. So I'm still waiting to get back to my job. But as of right now, I can't film downstairs in the usual setup because I need to wear a mask around the house around everyone else, because just because I'm immune to it doesn't mean that I can't carry it to someone else. And also, too, the others are susceptible because there's 2 more people that haven't gotten it but possibly could. So we want to keep them as safe as possible. And if you record with a mask, if you've ever done it before, you would know that's probably not the best way to get audio. So for now, for the Crash Bandicoot 4 review, this is our reality. I hope it's not too bad of a setup. This is literally my workstation. Like, if I spin my chair around, this bad boy could fit so much editing in it. And also depression, but we don't talk about that. But literally, this is the setup only for hopefully the Crash Bandicoot 4 review, which I'm hoping to have out by the end of January. As for the schedule for the rest of the year, there's a reason the joke in the opening where I make fun of my original opening for Battle for Bikini Bottom has 3 other channels other than New School Arcade. Because I am a part of 4 shows. New School Arcade, Game Dimension, Coffee House Productions, and I edit for my friend Shogunai the Leader. Well, that was smooth. I did like a clock thing. I love it. But yeah, I'm a part of 4 shows, and the setup for the shows is New School Arcade is twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's sort of on a hiatus now because we ran into streaming problems, but once this whole thing's over and I can not wear my mask around the house, then we will get back into it. But those are Tuesday, Thursdays. Coffee House Productions and Dating Simulator. Dating Simulator is the show I host with my friend Brian and Connor and Show, and also Nick, who runs Coffee House Productions in general. But that is a show that I also host, and that runs on Mondays and Fridays every week. And there's also Shogun Out of the Leader, which I edit for, and it's a paid editing job. And we get videos out once a week, generally around Friday. You can see how busy I am. But a bit of my workload is a bit alleviated because my girlfriend, I'm teaching her how to edit for her own channel, which will start soon, and she's also helping with New School Arcade, so that way the workload's a little bit alleviated. So I appreciate her for that so much among everything else. But yeah, 4 channels is a lot, from recording to editing and uploading and whatnot. So Game Dimension is probably the biggest channel production that I have out of all of that. And I think I'm going to stick with a video a month ordeal. If I feel confident enough and I have a quick enough video that I can like pop in and have like 2 videos a month, that's probably going to happen. But as you can tell from the length of every single video, the smallest one is 22 minutes long and the longest is 1 hour and 12 minutes. So from 1 hour to 20 minutes is the gap on where each video will lie, depending on how many skits I do and also like the size of the game that I want to review. So in regards to like reviewing everything and the skits, that's where it's going to lie, and that takes a lot of my time. Like cutting out the breaths between each sentence that I do during my audio edits takes up like 3 hours as a whole because I'm very nitpicky on where the breaths lie and where the sentences end. So it takes a lot of time for the Game Dimension, as I'm sure a lot of you can probably guess. So for now, at least for 2021, unless said otherwise, there's going to be a video out a month. So 1 video a month is the schedule for now, starting with Crash Bandicoot 4. February's sort of up in the air right now. March, I have something in mind. I'm hoping to have it out at the beginning of March, so if I skip February, you know why. Let's just say it's a certain cat, if you will. So again, if you can't figure it out already, I want to have it out by the beginning of March, so if I skip February, I'm sorry, but again, the schedule is a video a month. And also, too, there may be a few collaborations this year because there are a couple of my friends that want to collab with me. I won't name names, but to say this is going to be a big year for the Game Dimension is an understatement. I may even take off May just because June is going to be the 1-year anniversary of the Game Dimension. And it certainly doesn't feel like it, but I can't believe it's already been 6 months. I may take off a May upload just so that way I could focus on the 1-year anniversary special, which I already have in mind. I don't know what I'm doing for May yet, so that's why I'm leaning towards possibly taking it off to sort of work on the 1-year anniversary stuff, because I feel like an anniversary is important to show how far you've come, and I really want to start the 2nd year off with a bang, so look forward to that. But as of right now, that's the schedule going forward. Okay, so now that we got sort of the boring shit out of the way, there are a lot of games that I want to talk about, which I'm going to get up right now, including Game of the Year. So, we gotta talk about these really quick, rapid fire. They'll get a review sometime in the future maybe, but we gotta talk about these. So, 2020, for whatever reason, whether it's the pandemic or just studios and crunch, Cyberpunk, it was sort of a weird year for games, to say the least. But that doesn't mean that we didn't get good games, because when we got good games, oh boy did we get them. And I want to go over 2 certain categories that I have in mind for this year. Game of the Year and also Best Remake of the Year. We got a lot to go over. But also before we begin, honorable mention to a game that I almost considered for a category DLC of the Year or even Game of the Year, because it could technically be a game on its own. Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC. That deserves an honorable mention because it fixed so much with the main plot of Kingdom Hearts 3. It was emotional, it gave us everything us longtime fans wanted, and also too, it gave us something to be excited about for the future, which, Nomura, my dude, what the fuck are you planning, dude? Like, you're fucking me up here, buddy. 3 wasn't enough, and now you're gonna bring in this? I won't say much if you haven't played it before, but let's just say 13 Versus is still salty about being canceled. A I'll leave it at that. So before we get to Game of the Year, why don't we talk about my favorite remake of the year? Because despite this year having some really awesome original games, I really do feel like this was the year for remakes. You got Rehydrated to start off, you got Tony Hawk Remastered 1 and 2, and you also have remakes that I've been dying to play, but haven't gotten to because I've been busy one way or another, like Trials of Mana, which I hear is fantastic, and I screeched over last year at E3, and yet somehow I haven't played it yet. I really want to. So keep an eye out for that thought soon. So four games come to mind when we talk about four games come to mind when you think about remasters, and they are SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, which I don't have at the moment because Fuseball is borrowing it, and those were going to be my main two. It was going to be between those two games for remastered. A, because Tony Hawk really does the series justice, I feel like, and B, despite all of Rehydrated's problems, I still love it. And also, too, I've gone back recently, and the patches, I think, have really fixed a good chunk of my problems with the game. There are some problems that you can't fix, like that really, really bad multiplayer. Seriously, why? But I feel like a good chunk of technical problems have been fixed. I'm probably going to start a new file over just because I love Rehydrated anyways as a whole and see what it does for the overall game, but I really do think they fixed a bunch of it. But it was going to be between those two games. And then I remembered. These two came out this year. Destroy All Humans and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX. These are probably going to be my big candidates for remasters of the year, even though I haven't reviewed them. And between the two, I'm leaning a little more towards Mystery Dungeons DX. For those of you that don't know, I'm a big Pokemon fan and a Mystery Dungeon fan as a whole, and we haven't gotten a really standout game in a long time. There have been some really good games, mind you, but we haven't gotten a big game in a couple years since Super Mystery Dungeon. And the fact that they sort of just out of nowhere announced a remake of the first games was mind-boggling. A bunch of like the gameplay is still there and still really is fun. If you like dungeon crawlers, you'll like Mystery Dungeon. But I think the biggest thing is the fact that they added Mega Evolutions and did a few tweaks here and there to make the core game better. The remastered soundtrack is fantastic. I love it so much. And the graphics, they've been a bit of a controversial point, but I really like them. I kind of like the storybook watercolors aesthetic that they're going for, and I think it really works for Mystery Dungeon. So yeah, Remaster of the Year goes to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. And if this hopefully is the future for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the future is looking pretty bright. So now we move on to Game of the Year, which is all of these games are possible candidates for my Game of the Year. And let's just talk about them really quick. Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. I don't think anybody expected a rhythm game. And even me, who's a big Kingdom Hearts fan, as soon as it was announced as a rhythm game, kind of looked at it and went, you gotta be shitting me. But this actually is a really fun rhythm game. And if there's any excuse to listen to the Kingdom Hearts soundtrack, I will gladly take it. That is for sure. This was a pretty close candidate because it's just a fun, addicting rhythm game from start to finish, and also too, Quadratum. For those of you that played Melody of Memory, you know where I'm going with this. Another big candidate that I sort of considered is Persona 5 Royal. I love the Persona series so much. I love Persona 5 Royal. It's easily one of my favorite RPGs of all time, which is a very hard category for me because I love any RPG because I'm an RPG nerd. But this game just has some great changes to the story. If you played the original, for example, you know the changes. I love the grappling hook. I love everything in this game. I love the characters so fucking much. If you've never played Persona 5, original Persona 5, then you'll just have a good time overall with this. I also planned on having Final Fantasy VII Remake in here, but also too, I don't have that case because again, Fusefall is using that game as well, and you know, quarantine. So I love Final Fantasy as well. Final Fantasy VII is easily a hyped game. The remake was hyped for a while, and it did everything right. I think it is so good. The story is different if you played the game, but it still does the characters justice. I love the fleshed out characters. There is padding in there, mind you, but I loved Aerith. I love Cloud. I love how their interactions are more fleshed out now. I love the battles, for God's sake. Moving it to like action RPG like Kingdom Hearts easily does Cloud and his sword justice. Like, I love it so much. And to think it's only part one of like I think, a trilogy for Final Fantasy VII that Nomura has planned. But also on that note, once again, Nomura, this is your warning. Whatever you're about to do with the story, you have my attention. I'm not gonna lie. Because the story is probably the biggest controversial thing. Some fans like it, some fans hate it. I like it, but to say that Final Fantasy Remake is fantastic is an understatement. Also, it helps that the game looks gorgeous. Jesus Christ, does it look good. But once again, Nomura, you have our attention. Don't fuck it up. If we're also going to talk about games that I don't have the case for, Hades is a big one. I started this a little bit late in the year, but whew, first of all, I'm a sucker for anything that is Greek mythology, and my god, is this game really fucking good. Oh, I'm not Canadian, you know. Maple syrupy, but you know. To say that Hades is fantastic, I think it's probably the front runner for Game of the Year for me. One of them that I have in mind. But the art style is fantastic. I love roguelikes, and this combat is smooth as butter. The characters and their interactions change depending on how far you go in the underworld. It's just so good. And also, too, every character is hot as shit. There is a problem when Aphrodite is the least attractive person and yet still is hot. My favorite's Poseidon, but that's just all I'm gonna say on that. But yeah, Hades is a really good game, and I might review it at some point. But also, too, I'm not always good at roguelikes, and I'm getting better at it, but it might be a while. But go play Hades, seriously. It's on Steam, it's on Switch, I think it's on sale right now on both of them. Go play Hades. I cannot do it justice just by talking about it. You need to experience the story for yourself, especially because, wow, this just shows that you don't need a AAA budget to make a good game. This was fantastic. Another game that I started late was Doom Eternal, and this is also a candidate for Game of the Year. Now, first of all, I'm not really that big of a Doom guy in the first place. I play the games, but I'm not like the most fanatical over them, but man, Doom Eternal turned me into a believer. It just smooths everything out from 2016, and I have a friend of mine, their name's May, and they didn't like 2016, and yet really loved, the games are falling off my leg, please don't mind me, but they really loved Doom Eternal, and I think that speaks volumes about Doom Eternal's like quality control as a whole. The world is fantastic, the combat is so smooth, especially chainsawing enemies for ammo, the gunplay is amazing, and that soundtrack. Oh, I am a big fan of rock and heavy metal, and let me tell you, this soundtrack is really fucking good. Meat Hook, I think it's called Meat Hook, but oh my god, it's so good. I am so excited to see what Doomslayer has in store, and the story also, surprisingly good. I know Doom isn't like the biggest story-based series ever, but this actually ties a lot into previous games. I won't go into too much spoilers about it, but man, this story actually is kind of good. So once again, if you want to rip and tear, this is the game for you. Alright, this one I know the review's coming out for, but Crash Bandicoot 4, like from the get-go when it was announced, was my Game of the Year candidate. It looks fantastic, and playing it firsthand, I know I have a review coming out, I'm sorry, but here's my general thoughts. Amazing game. Seriously, like, I think this game is probably the best Crash experience. If you know Crash Bandicoot and is platforming well, this is the best Crash experience. This is the go-to. It ties everything together. The nostalgia and the Easter eggs behind it are so well placed and so well thought out. Controlling Crash feels amazing. The levels are gorgeous. The bosses are probably the best they've ever been. But I won't go too much into this game because, again, a review's coming out, but there is a big glaring issue that probably keeps this from being Game of the Year. And again, we'll get to there soon enough. Now, I mentioned earlier that I started Doom Eternal late, and there's a big reason for that. It's because I was spending all my time in Animal Crossing New Horizons. I love this series so much. It's adorable, it's relaxing, and I even got to play a little bit of this at PAX along with Rehydrated, so to say I was excited before the release was great. I got both Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing at the same time, and Doom Eternal kind of sat in its shrink wrap for months while I was busy fishing. But Animal Crossing New Horizons, there's so many good quality of life changes to this. I love the island aesthetic. I love just all around building your island from the scratch. You get a lot less at the beginning of the game than you do than any other game, but you get so much more if you stick with it. And unfortunately, this probably isn't my front runner for a Game of the Year. It's a nominee, but unfortunately I don't think it's a front runner. First of all, I kind of fell off of it for a bit because I got busy with Game Dimension and other things, and second of all, there are a few gripes that I have with it, such as breakable weapons and breakable tools. We don't need breakable everything, Nintendo. And also, too, just some changes from Animal Crossing that I don't like, and things that are cut out. I appreciate the fact that they're rolling updates in naturally for events and stuff, but I feel like there's a lot more they could add to this game, but it's definitely a top 2, maybe top 3 candidate for, like, best Animal Crossing game. New Leaf's still my favorite, though. But to say that this game really hit the spot during quarantine is an understatement. I love this game. Okay, this one I already reviewed, but this is definitely a Game of the Year candidate for me. And depending on how you see this game, this either means, wow, you didn't play that many games, or wow, there were a lot of good games for you. But I really do think Paper Mario the Origami King is a possible frontrunner for Game of the Year for me. Again, I won't go too much into it because I already made a long-ass review, so by all means, go watch that review and then come back here and you'll possibly understand why I consider this game a Game of the Year candidate. There's just so much that they do right. The story is impactful. The gameplay is not the best, but when they do it right, boy do they do it right. So again, I won't go too much detail in it because I have a review for it, but go watch that and maybe you'll see where I'm coming from, why Origami King is a Game of the Year candidate. And finally, the last Game of the Year candidate that I have, Ghost of Tsushima. This game I was pretty hyped for from the get-go, and I kind of bought it a little late. I think I bought this around October, I want to say, but I kind of started a bit later than everyone else, but amazing game. I would go so far as to say this is probably the best PS4 game. Not even gonna lie. The world is gorgeous. I love the story so fucking much. Just overall Japan and like that aesthetic with Japanese culture is just amazing. It really immerses you in feudal Japan. It's just so much is done right, and it's so interactive too. Like there's a thing in the game where if you swipe like the touch bar on the PS4 controller, you wipe the blood off your sword. It's little things like that that make it so much more immersive. And it also helps too that you can literally play this like an old school samurai movie that it's inspired from. Like you can get the black and white aesthetic with Japanese voice actors. I would highly recommend playing it that way. Play it any way you want, but just play Ghost of Tsushima. I don't have the time for big games because I have a job outside of Game Dimension and the other 3 channels, but I may make an exception for Ghost of Tsushima down the line because this is a game that is just way too important, way too fantastic to sort of fit into quick blurb, but play this game. It's definitely the best PS4 game. So, that was a lot of Game of the Year candidates. I played a lot of good games, but I did have to narrow it down because we would be here a long-ass time, more than we already are. How is it that an update video ends up being long? But I had to narrow it down. And it took a long time, it took a lot of thinking, it took a lot of talking with friends and playing the games again and looking back to think about it, but I've narrowed it down to 3 games. Ghost of Tsushima, Paper Mario the Origami King, and Hades. Out of these 3 games, only one can be Game of the Year. Which is it? It's Ghost of Tsushima. Again, there's so much they do right with this. It's so interactive for a PS4 game. They do so much of it, like, including the blood swiping. If, like, instead of marking an objective on your world and be like, you gotta travel to here, like, instead of, like, marking it on your map, you swipe the touchpad and the wind blows in the direction where the objective is. Oh, Origami King fell. No, come back. I miss you. But again, it's stuff like this, like, that make a game more interactive. And I know I'm gushing over a game that I haven't reviewed yet, but, like, it's so good. It's really fucking amazing, and I knew it was gonna be great. Like, the combat does take time getting used to. It can be a bit stiff at first, but once you do, oh, so good. So fucking good. Again, there's so much they do right with this that I don't have time to go over because, again, this is an update video with a little bit of fun at the end. But the world is great. Interactive is up the ass. Like, seriously, I don't think there's enough that I could talk about and how interactive this game is. Story's a great touch. Feudal Japan done right. Game of the Year goes to Ghost of Tsushima. Seriously, play this fucking game. Alright, and with that out of the way, we have one last thing before we go. Oh, I almost dropped my phone. the moment you've probably all been waiting for. It is Q&A time, and I did not expect as many questions as I got. I'm gonna try to answer them all as best as I can, but thank you guys for showing up and making questions for me to answer. I really appreciate it. Let's pull some up and let's answer them as we go. So these questions come from Cam, who has actually been a very good mutual and also a longtime supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for everything that you do, and I look forward to your comeback in 2021. But they ask, first of all, they say, hope everything goes all well, bro, because again, I was sick at the time. Thank you so much. So first question, who are your inspirations for making YouTube videos? This question was asked twice, not just by Cam, but also by Row Reviews, which we'll get to soon enough. But inspirations. So there's a couple that come to mind. Peanut Butter Gamer, The Completionist, Space Hamster, JonTron, Angry Video Game Nerd. Those guys come to mind immediately. As for later inspirations, in regards to humor especially sometimes, I would say Scott the Woz. Like, how have you not heard of him at this point? And also, too, in regards to the humor, there's also a channel that I don't know if many of you have heard about, but they were the first YouTube channel that I ever watched. Cute Mario Bros. They're like a plushie channel, and they've been around since, like, again, the beginning of YouTube. In regards to their humor, it's very 90s cartoon. It's very slick. It's hilarious. It's family friendly, but sort of jabs for the adults. Like, again, I know I can be very vulgar at times, but when I can make a jab that's funny for all ages and is understandable, whether it's a reference or a slick sort of undertone, I love putting that in. And their pacing is just so great. Their show is ending soon, unfortunately, which feels like the end of an era, and I'm very sad about it, but those are my inspirations. And these are inspirations that I've had for years, even before I started New School Arcade. I just love their styles of reviews so much. I love how they talk. I love how they interact with fans. I love how they're open about their stuff. They just have no shame in what they make. They're very proud of it despite all the hiccups, and I'm certainly proud to call them my inspiration. So that's the answer to that question. Quite a lot of inspirations. Favorite game, they also ask. Ooh, that's tough. I have a lot of favorite games. Pokemon Black and White 2. I'm gonna come out and say it. Before I change my mind. A lot of games come to mind. Now I'm second guessing and thinking Kingdom Hearts 2. Okay, let's just call it a tie. Pokemon Black and White 2 and Kingdom Hearts 2 are my favorite games of all time. Kingdom Hearts and Pokemon, conveniently enough, are my favorite video game series of all time. I love them so much and what they've done and impacted my life, and still love the games that they're pumping out. But I think they hit their peak with Kingdom Hearts 2 on the PS2 and also later on the PS3. The combat was just so smooth. The story was just fantastic. The bosses are easily the best in the entire series, especially that final boss, even though you get carpal tunnel afterwards. But I just think Kingdom Hearts 2 did so much right, and it's easily regarded as the best game of the series, even one of the best RPGs of all time, and it's very understandable why. As for Pokemon Black and White 2, I know a lot of people prefer Pokemon Black and White, but I just love Team Plasma in this game more. I love how more Pokemon are involved in the region. Like, you can get, I think, a Larvesta in Route 2. Like, that's amazing, first of all. And I love the Unova region as a whole. I love Gen 5 as a whole, outside of the anime. Good God, let's not talk about that. But I just think Black and White 2 does so much better story-wise, and even connects back to the original Black and White in ways that I don't think anybody expected the Pokemon series to do. So again, favorite game, probably Black and White 2 and Kingdom Hearts 2. I'm probably going to second guess it afterwards, but that is your answer for now. Favorite movie, Labyrinth. It's Labyrinth. There's not a second guess in my mind. My favorite movie of all time is definitely Labyrinth. First of all, I love Jim Henson and I love puppetry. I know that's your fun fact for the day about me. I just love puppetry. I love the Muppets. I love Jim Henson's work. I even got to do a play based about D&D with puppetry and got to be a part of, like, some of the monsters like the Bugbear and Tiamat, which was fucking awesome. It is like a nerd's paradise. So that's your fun fact. I just love puppetry as a whole. I think in so many ways it's so much better than CGI. And if I could ever make something with puppetry, I absolutely will. 100% count on that. But I just love Jim Henson's work. And also, too, another fun fact, my favorite musician of all time, and probably one of my favorite people of all time, is David Bowie. I legit have a crush on this man, and I am not ashamed to admit that. Like, I love David Bowie's work, and he's such a fantastic artist in film and in music, and he plays the Goblin King so fucking well. Mwah! Literally, I could kiss that man. I would be taken away by him any day of the week. But I just love Labyrinth's story. It's a simple story, sure, and I know it's like a coming-of-age tale, but I love the world. I love the songs, especially Dance Magic Dance and like Within You and Underground. I love everything that was done right with this. Like, it's such a simple story, and yet it's so effective. And it's just so addicting. Like, Dark Crystal is probably a second favorite Henson movie for me, but it's Labyrinth. Labyrinth is my favorite movie of all time, even passing Star Wars. There's a lot wrong with me, but yeah, top tier. You need to watch it if you haven't already. Oh, Jesus Christ, this is the question that I was most afraid to answer. My friend Autumn T comments, if Corona was a hot girl, would you fuck her? Hold on, I should do this right. It's not spelled correctly. Would you fuck her? Considering I just had a dance with the virus, no. Not even if they were a hot guy or girl. I don't care who they are, I will not fuck them. Because let me tell you, the disease they give you afterwards, it ain't good, chief. Ameben, actually. Oh, good to see you, Ameben. How you doing, buddy? But Ameben has a couple questions. They ask, is there a specific game you'd vow to never review? I actually asked that question to another channel, Retro Mini Me, which is also another fantastic channel that you need to watch. But in regards to me and like a game that I would never review, not really. I'd say anything's on the table at this point. Would I go back and re-review Maneater? No. But in regards to games that I haven't reviewed yet, I don't think there's anything off the table just yet. I'm down to anything. Even if it's really bad and I don't know about it or I know it's bad, I'm down to review it just for content. If it's a good game, whatnot, whatever system, if I have the system for it and I'm able to record it, I'm probably going to review it. Will that change down the line? Maybe. I don't know yet. But as of right now, I don't think there's anything that I wouldn't review. Oh, this is a good one. Favorite arcade game. So, there's a couple actually. I used to work, fun fact, at an arcade. It was called, for any of you in the New England area, particularly Massachusetts, I used to work at Laser Craze, which is now called Extreme Craze. Go there if you haven't already. I love that place so much. Really amazing people and really awesome laser tag, but they had some really cool arcade games. But favorite arcade game. Why am I even thinking? I can't believe I almost forgot this. Star Wars the trilogy. Like, there's this big Star Wars machine at Chuck E. Cheese, and whatever arcade you will, but it was mostly at Chuck E. Cheese. But you got to play all of this, like, in the spaceship, like, in the ships, in the original trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. You got to play in those ships and partake in awesome reimaginings of the Battle of Hoth, Battle of Endor, Death Star blow up, all that fun stuff. And there were little mini games in between where you got to like duel against Darth Vader and Boba Fett. It was so much fun. I had a party at Chuck E. Cheese when I was younger, and I remember we all took turns at the machine. Like, there was 6 of us little guys and girls like huddled at the machine waiting for the other person to die and rooting them on, but secretly wanting to get our turn next. But we were all sitting there for like maybe half an hour, taking up that machine, playing that game. And years ago when we went to Disney, there was like the Disney arcade. I think it's Disney Quest, I think it's called. But it was like a giant building full of arcade games. And I remember seeing it far off in the corner, put away from everything else for some reason. And I spent so much time on that game because even now, it's still so good. And even too, like controlling it, you control it like you're in the spaceship. You know, you got the little stick, you're like, boom, 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 boom. It was so much fun. Like, that's probably going to be my favorite arcade game of all time. So I think it's called Star Wars Original Trilogy. Future me, please put the original title, if it's not that, somewhere in the video and correct my mistake. But Star Wars Original Trilogy arcade game. Can't go wrong with that. This is another question that I have been afraid to answer because I need to explain the situation behind it. Can I join the Backyardigans Roleplay Club? Okay, so my girlfriend and me, she's been behind me the whole time, like on the laptop and like doing some stuff for her reading, but she just immediately started trying not to piss herself. But this story is actually, I gotta explain this. First of all, I'll get to your answer soon enough, but I gotta explain the story, Ben. So this year at PAX, when we went, it was me and Fusefall, my girlfriend Megan, and my father. We all went, and we were waiting in line, and there was these really awesome people in line as always. And if you've been to PAX, you know that they also throw like beach balls and stuff. Well, this one guy that we were with started putting memes on the beach balls. Like, there was literally a picture. He started pulling them out of his pocket like it's fucking Mary Poppins bag. And he started putting memes on the beach balls and sending them back. Like, one of the memes was Sal from Impractical Jokers crying. And it was so hysterical. Like, everyone was flinging them around. And then there's this guy who's just jumping up like it's a football game, grabbing it, taping a meme on, and just sending it out. And eventually somebody else, I guess, got the idea that, okay, if this person's doing it, I'll do it too. And they taped a poster, which you can see in my Twitter profile pic. I'll probably put the pic somewhere around here, because I was pissing myself at this. But it was a picture, it was a poster advertising a fake Backyardigans roleplay club. And the more you look at it, the more glorious and ridiculous it is. Like, at first I noticed how, like, it was first of all, the meeting was in the woods from 9 p.m. to midnight. That right there is funny on its own. Second of all, there were instructions on how to get there. And one of the instructions, I don't remember any other one, I just remember this one specifically, Gertrude knows the way. I don't know what the fuck Gertrude knows, but that made me want to join the club right then and there. And I'm not into furry shit. But there's that, and the whole poster as a whole, the more you looked at it, the more you saw, like, the spelling errors and just the meme quality overall. And again, it's my Twitter profile pic. A couple people that I've had disagreements with on Twitter have actually looked at the profile pic and stalked my profile, I guess, and have decided to use that against me and call me a furry, which is far from the truth. But if you are a furry, more power to you, I guess. I'm not trying to judge them or anything, but I'm personally not. But literally, if I had a nickel for every time somebody called me a furry because of that profile pic, I would have 3 nickels, which isn't very much, but it's kind of weird that I have 3 nickels to begin with from this situation. But yeah, that's the context behind that. I might change my profile pic soon because, again, you can only take the furry shit so much before it's like, haha, funny joke, but yeah, that's the context behind that. Also, to answer your question, Ben, yes, you can, but I get Tyrone. You can be Uniqua. I don't care. I get Tyrone. Mine, okay? I get to be the moose. This person is actually in the room right now. Megan Hills, aka my girlfriend, asks, I have a question. Why you so cute? Not to brag or anything, but I think I'm fucking ugly. But in all seriousness, this does bring up a point I want to talk about. Shout out to my girlfriend who has put up with my shit the most of all this. She literally helps me set up the frame perfectly so that way I could sit down and look at the phone and make sure the frame's right while she sets it up, because if you know how phones work, you don't have a flip screen like on cameras to check the frame. So she literally not only helps me out with that, but reads my scripts, watches the final product before they're uploaded, runs the Instagram channel, not Instagram channel, acid reflux, bro. But the Instagram page for the Game Dimension, which you should follow if you haven't already, because that, other than my Twitter, that's where the most updates happen. But she does all of this shit, which she doesn't have to, by the way, because she also does college and works as well. She doesn't have to do it. She doesn't have to put up with my shit and my perfectionist ways, but she does it, and 4.5 years definitely is not enough to describe how much I love this girl. Seriously. Like, thank you to her for everything. Actually, you're right behind me. Thank you, honey. Love you too. But to answer your question, I'm not cute. Row Reviews has a couple questions. The first one I already answered. You can refer back to Cam for that row. But the second question actually I think is one of the hardest. These next 2 questions are probably the hardest that I have answering. Do you think having worked on other YouTube channels in the past helped when starting the Game Dimension, despite them not being review channels? Yes and no. First channel that I ever made was My Benson 5, which was a channel made for me by my parents. They surprised me with it because they were like, if you want to make videos, you have to do it, but we also get to check, because I was in middle school at the time, and you know, the whole internet scare thing. But I would say that channel was like not exactly the biggest factor, because that remains for some reason the most subscribed channel ever at 116 subscribers. And also, too, I don't think it helped me as much compared to New School Arcade, because that was more of a figurine channel in a way. Like, it definitely helped me reimagine some of my ideas from that middle school era. But in regards to the big YouTube thing, not really, especially because my form of editing back there was like putting my hand over the lens and just running to like the opposite end of the room for the next scene. Like, literally, you can hear me go and like you could hear me running. So no editing was done in that, but I would say that channel was like the start, I guess. In a way, I guess you could say it was the spark on making content and making YouTube videos, but in helping this channel grow, no. In fact, that's the channel I try to forget about the most, and yet people want to watch those videos. So if I'm gonna make a promise here, if we find the videos and we somehow get to 100 subscribers by the end of this year, I will at some point watch the videos on the channel. We'll make a whole premiere event and everything. I'm probably gonna regret that if we do find them, but if we find them, rest assured, it'll happen. Okay, but in regards to like New School Arcade, that I think has a little bit more influence because it sort of set the standards for what I want for content. Like New School Arcade, if you've watched it, you should subscribe, by the way. It's basically me and my buddy Connor sitting down playing video games a la Game Grumps style. So I guess that's sort of an inspiration too. I'll add that to my inspiration list. But basically we just sit down and play video games, and it's an inspiration or a benchmark for helping me. Oh, I can't speak. Basically, I would say it definitely helped me understand YouTube a bit better because not only did it set the standard for what I want put out, but also too, it also helped with the schedule. Like I said, Game Dimension runs weekly. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that sort of helped me sort of, in general, make schedules more. And that is what translated to Game Dimension. Like, for example, I made schedules for New School Arcade and also learned what limits on how I make content and how often I can get it out. That's sort of the same thing with Game Dimension, I guess. Like, now I understand the sort of setbacks I have with Game Dimension compared to everything else and how it takes a bit more time and I need to make a schedule around that. So I would say New School Arcade definitely helped influence this channel in regards to growth because it helped me understand I can only get so much content out with what I have and what I can do, and to make a schedule around that and hope for the best. So yeah, New School Arcade, big help. My Benson 5, burn it with fire. They also ask, what things would you say developed your sense of humor the most? This is probably the hardest question that I can answer. There's a couple things. Again, going back to my inspirations, Cute Mario Bros, growing up with that definitely is. Scott the Woz has been a bit of an influence. Actually, I think it's an easier question to say because I think the inspirations that I look up to all have sort of chipped away at my humor, to say the least. Like, there's a bit of Peanut Butter Gamer in there, there's a bit of Scott the Woz in there, there's a bit of Angry Video Game Nerd in there. I feel like my inspirations for YouTube as a whole have definitely influenced my comedy in a way, and also, too, my buddy Connor has influenced my humor in a way. That man is the funniest man alive. You can't change my mind. Like, seriously, go watch New School Arcade. I just edit and make sure the content's good. He carries that show in regards to humor. He is the funniest man alive. I think he's influenced my humor in more ways than others. He's definitely an influence. But other than Connor, other than my inspirations, I would say early cartoons. Cartoons like Chowder, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, even going back to the 90s even, like Ren and Stimpy in some ways. I would say cartoons like that have inspired me and like inspired my comedy, like very out there comedy in a way, like, you know, instead of just like telling a joke and then leaving, it's like very out there sketch comedy. Maybe even Kenan and Kel. Those guys are hilarious as well. I think they inspired my comedy as well. Just sketch humor as a whole. And that mainly comes from cartoons because most cartoons back then were sketches in their own right. Like, it'd basically be 2 episodes in a half-hour span. So I think cartoons like that and Ed, Edd and Eddy and Chowder and Foster's, like I said, definitely helped inspire my humor a lot as well. So a lot of inspirations helped shape my humor in the best way possible, I think. And then we get to Fusefall. Let's see what Fusefall said today. He's in the other room, so let's see if I have to whoop his ass. First question he asks is, can you beat Goku? No. Can you review Dirty Bomb, for God's sake? Okay, so he reviewed Brink. He talked about why Brink was forgotten on his channel. Again, go subscribe to him already if you haven't. But he reviewed Brink on his channel, and he talked about Dirty Bomb at some point as like part of the company's history. And I made a joke, and it's become a running joke between us now, where it's like, I told him, like, Brink is good, but is it Dirty Bomb? And now he is unironically wanting me to review Dirty Bomb constantly. So I'm going to make another promise right here and now. Quote me if you want. If I ever get 1,000 subscribers, I will review Dirty Bomb. Mark my words, it's probably not going to happen, but I will review it. And let me tell you, I might regret it. Fusefall also asks, what are your thoughts on Rhythm Heaven? It's pretty good. pretty good shit, honestly. Best collab you did with Fusefall. We only did like 2 collabs. I was on like 2 minutes for Super Mario 64, and then the whole video of Mega Man 8. What?
Podcast.
Oh, the podcast. Yeah, that's right, the podcast. How could I forget? But best collab we did, probably Mega Man 8. I actually like that a lot. That was actually a lot of fun. A lot of your fans actually loved it too, but somebody disliked it, and that kind of broke my heart a little. I hope I wasn't the reason, but yeah. But I would say Mega Man 8. Why did you actually answer these questions? Because I have nothing better to do with my life because I'm quarantined, and also too, this is for YouTube funny views, so absolutely. And then they finish off with, I gotta give an actual not funny question, so why the Game Dimension? If I'm being honest, there's no real history on why I chose the Game Dimension as a channel name. It's not like New School Arcade, where that has a cool history, where I was playing like pool in the middle of an arcade room in a hotel that I was at in Florida, and I just thought, New School Arcade. I actually went through like several names randomly that came off the top of my head. One of the channels actually that I was going to name this was Back to the Consoles, which is actually a reference to Back to the Future. But I kind of realized too, I talked to my girlfriend, I talked with Connor about it, I was like, you know, Back to the Consoles is a really good name, but that makes it sound more like I'm going to talk about the consoles and not the actual games. So that kind of went under the rug for a bit. That would be a cool name if I ever want to talk about like actual hardware at some point. But there were a couple other names that I forget, but I think Game Dimension just sort of was the one out of the random bunch that I had that just sort of stuck. Again, not really much history, but there is also a reason I named it Dimension. If you've watched Tony Hawk, and again, Radical Dimension, Radical Benson, I do want to get some dimensional humor in there and also a storyline at some point with Dimensions, but that'll be more down the line as Game Dimension grows. But for actual reasons, other than just that reason of I want to make a storyline and challenge myself on the channel with Dimensions, not really rhyme or reason. I just like the name. People like the name as well. I couldn't think of anything else, so Game Dimension it is. Also, it conveniently rhymes with Benson. So Benson from the Game Dimension sounds smooth as butter, and people like to refer to me as that. Other than Benson from New School Arcade, but Benson from the Game Dimension, smooth as butter. Okay, Project Misfit, which is also my buddy May, they ask, Legend of Dragoon or Final Fantasy VII? That's actually tough. Both are really good. Depends on what we're talking about, because if we're talking about in comparison to the remake, obviously Final Fantasy VII Remake's gonna get it, but the originals? Oh, that's so fucking hard. The PS1, for those of you that don't know, had some fantastic RPGs, easily one of the golden ages of RPGs, but between the two of them, I'm gonna say, fuck, why you ask this? This is hard. Legend of Dragoon. Legend of Dragoon. I'm probably gonna change my answer. I gotta play the originals again at some point, but I'm gonna say Legend of Dragoon. Definitely a really good game. I have a hard time picking between games, if you didn't notice yet. We're almost done though. We have 2 more questions. These are from my buddies Brian and Connor. Brian is the other host for Dating Simulator. Connor, I've already talked about several times and gushed about him, so you know who he is. So we're gonna get through these 2 questions and then we'll wrap it up. What is your happiest and or proudest moment playing a video game, Connor asks. There's a couple. So first of all, Kingdom Hearts 3, beating that on critical mode. I put so much time into critical mode. I screamed so many times. My blood pressure was rising. And also, too, I only did it as much as I did because I wanted to get my favorite Keyblade, Oblivion, for the Remind DLC. So I spent so much time in that. And beating the final boss after so much struggle, after so much frustrating moments, was amazing. I literally jumped up and I almost screamed, and it was almost midnight at night. I was so proud. That's probably my most recent proud moment as a gamer, but as a whole, that's a tough one. That is a tough one, actually. I got it. Proudest moment as a whole goes back to the Kingdom Hearts series again, back when I was a kid. Kingdom Hearts 2 final boss. Because let me tell you, when you're a kid and you have to press triangle and X at the same time and your whole life depended on it, can get a bit difficult, can get a bit frustrating, especially if you have slow reflexes like I did as a kid. So it's funny how, like, overall my proudest moments, recent and overall, are from Kingdom Hearts, but beating the final boss in Kingdom Hearts 2 finally as a kid, and beating the final boss on critical mode as an adult and getting Oblivion are my proudest moments. Actually, wait, I just thought of another one. Shiny Pokemon. Shiny Pokemon, actually. Connor, we've talked about shinies, but for the audience that isn't part of our conversations, catching shiny Pokemon is rare, and my first ever shiny Pokemon that I found was a shiny Oddish. I accidentally killed it in a one-hit KO. Critical hit. I was upset. Wasn't fun. But years later, I finally got another shiny Pokemon. It was Shiny Golett in Pokemon Black and White in the Dragon Spiral Tower. And this was around the same time too, mind you, where the Shiny Golurk and Shiny Hydreigon events were happening because of the Pokemon movies, but I was proud, and I was also very cautious because I remember years earlier when I was a kid, like it was a Vietnam flashback, just kind of sitting there going, oh no. But either way, catching Shiny Golett was my first ever shiny Pokemon was great, and then a week later, as if the gods somehow blessed me or something, a shiny Snorunt in Pokemon Emerald, the same game where I lost a shiny Oddish. I would say that's probably one of my proudest moments. Those three are my proudest moments, but definitely the shiny Pokemon, for sure. And then my buddy Brian asks for our final question of the Game Dimension Update video 2021. What is a game that you will never go back to because it made you so emotional, essentially? These games made me cry. All seriousness, I don't think I'll ever go back. I don't think I'll ever stop playing a Game Buddy because it made me emotional. But I would say, to answer your question, or sort of stretch it around in the way so that way I can answer it, because again, I don't think I'll ever stop playing a game because of how emotional it makes me. Games that make me so emotional no matter how many times I play them: Origami King, Kingdom Hearts 3, and also as a third one, Sea of Solitude. That game is such a good game about mental health. I have plans for mental health games in the future that I want to do at some point. I don't know if it'll be this October or not, but Sea of Solitude is just an amazing game about mental health. It's gorgeous. It's fantastic. Morty. It's fantastic and really simple, but the story carries it in so many ways, like those type of games have. But Sea of Solitude definitely made me cry so many times. Origami King. Again, if you've watched my review, you know there are 2 instances where I bawled my eyes out. And I'm not ashamed to say, I will fucking do it again. And then, the coup de grace, the crowning jewel of emotional moments, Kingdom Hearts 3. I cried so many tears of joy several times throughout this game. And then the ending decides, hey, you like crying, right? Well, how about instead of joy, tears of sadness? That's fun, right? But I think, actually, to be honest, this game is the biggest game that has ever made me emotional so many times in the span of less than an hour. I'm not gonna lie. Like, when I first played this game, I think I had emotional moments like 3 times in the span of an hour. Like, this game is a hardcore Kingdom Hearts fan's dream come true. There are so many story points that are wrapped up, and they do it really well. And then when the Remind DLC comes out and takes a look again at those points from different perspectives and even closes some gaps, to say I bawled my eyes out again is an understatement. But yeah, Origami King, Kingdom Hearts 3, Sea of Solitude make me blubber like a little bitch, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. And that wraps up the update video. I don't have anything much to say other than, again, thank you. As a aspiring filmmaker and content maker, it means a lot that in the span of 6 months, I've already gained a little following. And I know it's a bit cheesy to get emotional like this and like down to earth with you guys, but I do consider you amazing people. And I'm very lucky to have such a supportive group of friends, family, fans, whatnot, that support the Game Dimension as if it had 1 million subscribers. You guys are literally the best. Thank you guys so much for everything that you do. And you know what? Fuck it. I wasn't gonna do this, I wasn't gonna do this in the video, and I was gonna do it in the description or at the end of the video, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna shout out all the channels that have been supportive, whether it's for the Game Dimension or in my personal life, and are channels that have amazing quality content that you need to check out overall. So here are the shoutouts that you need to know. So thank you once again for everything to New School Arcade, mainly because Connor's on it. He's a big supporter. Fusefall, Nicolad Gamer 03, Shogun Idol Leader, Emily McRae, Camstar, Row Reviews, Retro Mini Me, Coffee House Productions, my buddy May, who is also Project Misfit by their YouTube handle, as you saw earlier with the questions, Brian from Belgium, Amiben, and so many other people. Like, there are so many people that I don't even have the time to thank, but these have been like the main supporters from the get-go and just have fantastic content. George Mario Nerd. I almost forgot that. I don't know if I said it already. I'm really tired. George Mario Nerd as well is also a fantastic Mario YouTuber, but again, thank you all, whether I named you or not, so fucking much for making the Game Dimension and me what we are today. I really appreciate it. Thank you. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. I guess since this is technically a Game Dimension video still, I have to ask some questions. If you could rank all my videos that I've done for 2020, how would you rank them? Like, from most enjoyable to least, whether you like them all or don't like one or two, how would you rank those 5? Another question, I guess, what are you looking forward to for 2021? I want to know. What are your goals? What are your dreams? What's your content that you're going to make? Let me know in the comments down below, and I look forward to interacting with you guys as always, and I'll see you very, very soon for Crash Bandicoot 4, unless something happens again. But it's the Game Dimension, and there's always difficulties, as you've learned, so we'll see. However, this is Benson from the Game Dimension, signing off. Happy New Year's, guys, and have a good day.